Welcome, Ecom Logistics Nation. Thank you for joining today's episode. We're on a mission to share e-commerce logistics insights, trends, successes, and challenges from the leaders and innovators in our space.
There's sides of the infrastructure that are still in the process of getting structured and set up to be able to handle and accommodate the quantities that companies are hoping to bring across. I think, whatever you can have produced closer. I mean, we talked about with the pandemic, the importance of diversifying your supply chains and your vendors and your partners. So looking to some of the companies that are already semi-established or already established in Mexico and Canada is a great way to at least get things moving. And then once you have a facility, if you are considering, reshoring and building something here, you have something in place to start that process.
Welcome, Ecom Logistics Nation. This episode, Ninad and I welcome Pam Simon, the conference chair and EVP of the Logistics Conference Manifest. Pam is a successful entrepreneur and business connector with more than 20 years of experience. In 2019, Connectiv acquired her Future of Events series from Lab Ventures. With the acquisition, Manifest was launched, the first and only global end-to-end supply chain event, bringing leading international corporations, investors, leaders, and innovators from around the world. She is a George Washington University graduate, an angel investor. Pam, we are truly excited for this conversation. Thank you for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Pam.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. So, Pam, you have a really interesting and successful history with running events. Very curious what you saw or didn't see in the logistics space that inspired you to launch Manifest, and what has that journey been like over the past 4 years?
The logistics industry has always been something that caught my attention. When I was at Lab Ventures, we were investing in the verticals that were of business that were dominating in Florida, where I'm based. I'm in Miami, and logistics is a big hub here. So we'd been working on logistics as well as real estate and travel. And when it came to logistics, I just think that there's so much room for innovation. There's so many things that are happening. There's so many different changes that have ripple effects that people need to be aware of and be able to handle so that your goods are able to make their way around the world. From my experience, the best way to build and strengthen relationships is really through events and shared unique experiences. So the first Manifest actually took place in the middle of the Omicron wave, which was crazy to deal with. But for the first show, we did have 1,500 executives from over 30 different countries. And, the FOMO was real. So for the companies that weren't able to join us due to travel restrictions or, things that were happening, obviously with COVID around the world, I think they really felt that FOMO. So from this year's show, we had 3,300 executives from over 45 countries. And for next year, we're expecting between 4,500 and 5,000 attendees. So it's been growing, almost double every year. And it's been great to be able to bring the whole ecosystem together.
Wow. And so, the journey's been an interesting one. I still remember the first time I heard about Manifest, that during the Omicron wave, and it was like, what's this conference, right? And then the next year it was like the talk of the town. Everyone kind of started asking me like, oh, are you going to be at Manifest? Are you going to be at Manifest? So it kind of, the tune changed. And after attending, on my list of conferences, specifically within the industry, for both, the traditional as well as the new kids on the block type of companies and the ones that you end up visiting, specifically very focused in logistics, I got to say, I found it really interesting. And I really look forward to it next year, or depending on when the podcast launches this year.
Yes, thank you. And it is, as you mentioned, it is a full ecosystem effect, and that's what really makes Manifest unique. It is the only global show that covers the full end-to-end of supply chain, so from maritime through last mile and within the four walls. And it really is an ecosystem. So from the investor side, this year we had over 150 different funds in attendance. From shippers, it's agnostic. So anyone that's moving goods, fresh, pharma, big box, CPG, you name it. And then all the different technologies that are helping things move around the world more efficiently, sustainably, et cetera. And I think that that's had quite an impactful impact. From this year's show, over 60,000 meetings took place. And that has led to a number of investment rounds, partnerships, new customers, clients, and just an overall positive impact on the industry.
Just out of curiosity, Pam, how do you track 60,000 meetings? Is this something that you get kind of the feedback, or like how is that tracked? Just curious, just because you brought that up.
Yes. So our app is really amazing. And Manifest was actually nominated for Best Use of Technology at the TAC Gold 100, which is the awards for the event industry. So within our app, which will be available, I think, 6 weeks before the show. Strongly recommend everyone downloading it and starting to set up your meetings because it makes it a lot more efficient. But you're able to directly connect with people that are attending and schedule meetings that are on site happening. We have a full area, so it makes it really easy for folks, to find exactly where they're going and who they want to meet with. So from that standpoint, I can tell you over 60,000 meetings took place. I know there was a lot more than just that, but at least from the technology side, we have a lot of technology integrated throughout the entire show.
Wow.
So Pam, as the conference chair at Manifest, what are the most groundbreaking technological innovations in logistics that you're observing through your vantage point at Manifest, and how do you see that they're reshaping the industry?
Well, loaded question, because there's a lot of areas that we can, of directions we can go. I think, when it comes to workforce of the future or dealing with labor shortages, on the robotics side and automation, there's a lot of things happening there. And we have an amazing group of companies from Locust to Bright Machines to Adibotics and more, really diving into, what does that look like working with robots, how it will affect your company, how can it make things more efficient? So I think on the robotic side, there's definitely a lot happening on future of work and what that looks like. What do the new jobs look like? What does training look like going forward? As you can imagine, AI has come up in every single conversation that I've had. Like, you can't get away from it. It's everywhere. So I think from demand responsiveness and inventory and network optimization to preventative maintenance, digital manufacturing, to be able to analyze things in real time and how to be able to react accordingly. And then even on the sales side of things, being able to see, on an inventory side where things need to be adjusted, as different disruptions come, how to handle those things and really go from predictive to prescriptive and kind of marry those two together. And sustainability and visibility, which go hand in hand, are also huge areas that we're focusing on. When we talk about supply chain visibility, it doesn't simply mean visibility into your own supply chain. It means visibility amongst your partners, which will enable more collaborative decision-making and help to get your products closer to the customers. So I think those are three big areas that we'll be hearing a lot from.
And have you seen anything kind of change significantly? Like, as you sit in a really good position to see, like, okay, here are the companies year one, here's companies year two, here's companies year three. Like, you see the evolution, right? Are there technological upswings you can talk about, and also certain downswings that, hey, there was a lot of like noise around it? Like, I would like to get your vantage point, because it comes from a very different place than where we all see it from, right?
Yes. I think executives are increasingly investigating more into how they can implement strategies when it comes to circular economy, so that fewer goods are not destroyed or lost or wasted. So around circular and re-commerce is definitely an area that I've seen a lot more companies starting to realize, it does affect the customer. What are the different approaches? How can you do it more effectively, more sustainably? These are things that consumers are caring about. And I think overall, we've seen a shift where the priorities of supply chain managers have changed. So instead of mainly focusing on reducing costs in the supply chain, which used to be at the top of everything, it's now, after COVID, how to, avoid product availability issues and resilience. And those have really become, I guess, higher on the priority list, right. As well as diversification to be able to handle, whatever comes our way in the future.
Yeah. And I just got to add, like on the robotics side as an example. So you named a couple, right? You went Locus, Bright Machines, Atobotics, right? So you got the big kahunas, right? Like the names that kind of like come to your mind. Well, one of my observations in the industry has been, and walking some of the other show floors over the year, is about 20-30% of the companies that were there the year before aren't here this year. But then there is 40-50% more companies that exist in the robotic space. So like the space isn't going anywhere, but it has been a bit of a churn as we try and figure out where it lands. Yeah, and the big kahunas, the big names that you just roll off your tongue, right? Like that's always going to be there. But are you observing the same thing, that there is a lot of churn within the lower end of that market, or new entrants and new players on the hardware side?
I think there's a lot of smaller players. I think that there's an evaluation process, right? So companies are really figuring out what works best for them. Some of these smaller companies can offer things that are more customized, that really fit the bill, whereas some of the larger ones, could work for a majority of the things that you need them to work for, and then partner with some of the smaller companies to elevate what they're able to do. I think there's a lot more coming when it comes to spatial awareness. So I think the technology that goes along with the robots, we're going to be seeing more. There's more coming there, not just on the hardware side, but actual tech and software that can be implemented on top of the hardware.
Seems like you've seen things that are coming, foreshadowing, right? Like what we should be expecting at the conference this time around. So, and is this more to do with like more augmented reality type? Because is that the direction from spatial awareness from a machine standpoint, but also from a human standpoint as well, right? Like, is that kind of the direction you are seeing things move?
Yes, for both. Okay. For sure, for both.
All right.
And I'm curious, Pam, obviously you're in discussions with a lot of, like you had said in the beginning, this is a global event. So you're getting feedback and voice of customer, voice of past participants, voice of those that obviously sponsor and have booths. So what are the trends that you're seeing? I mean, I know maybe we just break them down. Like if we think of like AI and machine learning, are there certain types of conversation that people are looking to have at Manifest? Is there certain information or details they're looking to get while they're there? What are you hearing from your network specific to AI and machine learning?
It's coming up in every conversation, so it really can be applied across the board. From the maritime side, showing visibility, being able to handle some of the different hurdles that they've been experiencing around labor. I think, for people to be able to do their job correctly, I guess, I may alleviate some of the challenges of the repetitive business that we've been seeing. So when it comes to, operations, demand, AI can help for demand volatility and supply constraints and production, scheduling, dynamic distribution, as a way to augment the interaction by allocating resources, assigning people, scheduling processes. Overall, it's about efficiency and making your current workforce and your future be able to meet the goals that you have.
So the one thing that we didn't have last year, right? January timeframe, at least, as everyone was chirping about it, but no one had actually implemented it, was generative AI, right? Like open AI side of things, right? The pace at which that particular technology, right? So we talk about machine learning, computer vision, those things have been embedded in logistics systems, and there is a good level of maturity, and we are now seeing, that maturity play out in operational functions. But when it comes to generative AI, I think companies just were realizing in January of 2023 what this even means, right? Like individuals recognized it first, then the companies recognized it. And I think a lot of startups not just startups, but scaled up startups as well as startups and enterprise organizations that took notice, said, we need to tap into this ecosystem and do something big, right? Like enhance our capabilities. Are there areas that you would say like we should be watching for as we look at in the logistics space in 2024 or in the supply chain space that generative AI kind of helps improve?
I think when it comes to communication, just across the board, I think with freight forwarders, we'll be seeing more of them leaning further into using that. But I feel like from my conversations, like honestly, AI as a whole comes up, not as specifically around generative AI. Yeah. It's more like how are we implementing it across the entire ecosystem of the company, from a resilience standpoint to automation and how it's connected and how it's working with the different pieces of the business. But specifically around generative AI, I think that there's so much that's come up, but I don't think anyone's really has a set plan in place on how they're really attacking with that.
I agree with you because that's been my observation as well in the industry. It's like everyone wants to. Yeah. Everyone has the resources to as well, but it's like everyone is in search for a proper use case other than like chatbots, right? Like what else can I do, exactly. Right? Like, in operations inside the warehouse, can it make my operation smarter somehow by giving me real-time feedback loop as an example? And the one that you gave, freight forwarders, yes, it's a very like, even with all the technology, it's a very like pick up the phone type of industry, right? Still. Yeah. And so I can see where communication comes in play. That's where it starts making a lot of sense. So now very interesting take on it. And yeah, I'll be very honest, we are still searching for the right use case that actually makes sense at a scale because we get asked this question all the time. And that's why we ask our guests this question, but maybe we'll figure out like where the use cases
we're looking for the answers. Yeah, exactly.
I feel like everyone is still kind of trying to figure it out right now.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we'll get you off the AI hot seat here for a second. We're seeing a lot of trending towards reshoring and wanted to get your perspective on what technological strategies you're seeing companies adopting to streamline their supply chains as it relates to nearshoring and how you feel that might impact, global logistics as a whole.
Well, I think reshoring or nearshoring, whatever direction you want to approach that, I think we're at an interesting point right now because there's a lot happening in Mexico and a lot happening in Canada, right? Those are two areas for cross-border. And with Mexico, yes, there's a lot that's happening and there's a lot more that's going to be announced soon to come. But there's also still the challenges, of also the cross-border aspect, with the paperwork side of things and actually having things go across the border as well as the space. So, Laredo in Texas is one of the biggest areas of cross-border. They're expanding from 8 lanes to 16 lanes, which is going to be really going to help things move forward. That's a huge, going to be a huge jump. But then it'll be figuring out how to make sure that doesn't become a bottleneck when you're going from 8 to 16, and then how are you getting them all the way through? So I think that there's sides of the infrastructure that are still in the process of getting structured and set up to be able to handle and accommodate the quantities that companies are hoping to bring across. I think, whatever you can have produced closer. I mean, we talked about with the pandemic, the importance of diversifying your supply chains and your vendors and your partners. So looking to some of the companies that are already semi-established or already established in Mexico and Canada is a great way to at least get things moving. And then once you have a facility, or if you are considering, reshoring and building something here, you have something in place to start that process. I think we're going to, I mean, I can tell you, we will hear a lot more on this from the folks from Laredo, as well as the, US-Mexico border and Eclipse Ventures, as well as Gelato and Forbes. So we have some amazing companies that are going to be shedding a lot of great insights and feedback when it comes to nearshore, reshore, onshore. And yeah, it's about getting the infrastructure ready to handle it.
And one of the other observations definitely has been, companies have the choice of going down the path of like more automation from an efficiency standpoint, and also not just efficiency, but also, the labor pressures that we are dealing with in the industry, right?
Yeah.
But the other choice is that, that nearshoring type of capability. And I'll say over the last couple of years, one of the big, of course, it's existed for a while, but that 3-to-1, where you got the de minimis of, a couple $100 or $800 or something of that nature. But if you are an e-commerce shipper and you can find, that right strategy to utilize that cross-border 3-to-1 play, I think the technologies around that 3-to-1 plays have evolved quite a lot as well in how efficient and clean it makes it. Because, again, there is regulatory and compliance, and now you are getting, customs involved within the transactions. It's not just one country, 2 countries, customs organizations, right? It's complex, but technology is definitely solving for that and solving for it really good, where you could be storing your products in Mexico, and still shipping, or Canada, and shipping to the continental United States within a 3-day time frame or a 2-day time frame, and still have the same service levels while getting more efficiency and deeper access to that labor pool, which we are definitely struggling with in the hot markets, Columbus, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, etc., where warehousing labor is definitely a concern.
Yeah, and that's where you see more automation and robotics coming in.
Right. Yeah.
It's to help people, not take their jobs. It's to help.
100%. Yeah,
absolutely. Pam, I can't even remember, and Anad will probably remember the year where Amazon first tested the drone delivery in England.
2012.
So certainly been quite a while, but we're starting to see more, and we're starting to see companies do more pilots, and adoption is really increased. And I think there's some FAA, regulations that are coming to pass where again, it's allowing for the opportunity for drone delivery. So we definitely think that there's a promising place for that in the near future. Yeah. What are the conversations you're having, if any, as it relates to drones? And, what are you most interested in those conversations?
Well, I can tell you that Chick-fil-A is starting drone delivery in Tampa. So, from if you're craving fried chicken, you know where to go. So I think, when it comes to drones, we've seen a lot on the on the meals, obviously on food. Dairy Queen is doing it. McDonald's is doing it. Coke's doing it. A number of companies are doing drone delivery already when it comes to that. And then obviously on the medical side of things, there's a lot of different things happening. I know Cleveland Clinic is really ahead when it comes to setting up. And then in Europe, there's a lot happening. So I think with drones, it's really about location. It's not going to work in a major city. There's way too many things in the way, and it's going to be a problem. But I think for people in more urban, rural areas, we'll see more of it because it can be done much quicker. And there's a number of different types of ways to deploy, right? So we've seen some that are coming in a truck, and then the truck can open up and you have all these little drones pop out and make their deliveries. Whereas there's others that are just sent off and you get them. I think we already starting to see some, but we'll see more drones that can lift heavier loads. Because right now it's really been on the smaller side of things. But I think for middle mile, we'll be seeing more drones that can handle larger capacities.
For one, I can tell you that it's an exciting time coming when it comes to the drone side of things. And that's why I remember the 2012 year, right? Like, so there is, Gartner publishes that hype cycle thing, right? Which kind of talks about where it is in the maturity curve from a technology standpoint. And for all the chatter around drone, that hype is gone and now it's in real action. And the companies that are going to start popping up around this ecosystem, I think that's what's going to be interesting, to your point, right? Like, drones that, come out of trucks and just swarm within the neighborhood versus, I was recently watching FAA's actually, the amount of years, because they have been seeing this, watching it, and they have created the necessary model to be able to do flight path controls in different kind of zones. And created these highways for drones in the air that essentially say, hey, this is how you're going to operate within this frame where you could have hundreds, if not thousands of drones flying at the same time from a single warehouse, right? That's doing deliveries. Now, what does that also bring? You mentioned high density. Can you actually deliver high density neighborhoods, right? Like what ends up happening in these, so there might be pickup locations where it might drop things off as an example, right? Now there is a company that's actually addressing that. You have, low density or rural areas where the reach is farther. Now you need to, can drones do zone skips, let's call it, right? Like where it's jumping zone to zone and have, go to one point, and because it's going to run out of battery, another drone picks up that product and runs it. So let's call it the drone sort centers. The area that's really the area that's really close to us is, what happens when there is 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 companies that are working on drone delivery. Similar to if you walk into a warehouse today, there is 3, 4, 5 carriers that you might be shipping through. You will have a FedEx truck, a UPS truck, a USPS, right? DHL. You're going through all of this. What if there's 3 or 4 different drone companies that address different needs, servicing you? Are the warehouses ready? Is the infrastructure ready to be able to handle that? And what does that transformation? And again, these are opportunities for startups to kind of start looking at saying, okay, what can we do within the space to enable the infra? Because there is going to be companies that are going to be doing the drones, but someone's got to figure the other part out as well, right? Which is everything that goes along with it. I think that it's going to be pretty exciting times in the next 5 to 10 years.
I think so too. And it's definitely something that, as you mentioned, like the infrastructure side of it, companies like your Prologis and Cushman and JLL and Hillwood are looking into, do you need, like, what type of infrastructure, what do they have to include on their buildings, right?
Exactly.
Like, does a building need kind of like a helipad or like a good drone pad? Or, what does it need a runway? What does that look like? And then we're also seeing drones in the warehouse, right? Mainly for inventory usage. But that's another use case.
Exactly. And it's really interesting. You brought up Prologis, and I know they were at the Manifest conference last year. They are good friends of ours. And recently I got to sit through their Groundbreakers event in San Francisco. And like that entire conversation around the sustainable grid, right? Like just because the amount of roof space that a company like that has, like how does that now translate into sustainable energy for both electric trucks, and powering them, because where do trucks go? They go to warehouses, right? Like, so now if we can get clean energy that pumps into these electrical vehicles, right? But then now there's this piece of the drone stuff that's coming into play as well. The infrastructure plays are also becoming technical plays now, right? Like, and that's why it is so interesting, the direction things are going. It's no longer about concrete and just building those buildings. It's about everything else that goes along with it now.
Yeah, intelligent infrastructure is definitely a big topic of conversation, not just from the warehouses, but also at the ports too, right? So like with Port of Long Beach being able to have hydrogen for their trucks to come around and turn around, and as well as handling the electric side. So you're right. It's accounting for all the different types of fuel that these vehicles or drones will need, as well as the the space and to make sure that it doesn't interact or interfere with any of the other robotics or people or other that you have happening at your warehouse.
Exactly.
Pam, obviously mentioned in your intro that you do some angel investing, and we know at Manifest there's a lot of venture capital and private equity companies and individuals that attend. So from your perspective, what are the key areas in logistics technology that are attracting significant investment? We might have just named a bunch of them, drones and AI, et cetera. But are there any others that come to mind, and how you see those shaping the logistics industry?
So from an investing standpoint, it's really about, from an investor, they look at the team, they look at the background and the experience that these people have and how they're working together. If, when you're doing pilots, so for startups that are interested in working with big corporates or just anyone in general, working with these companies to pilot and test and iterate, because a lot of times when you do these types of pilots, it's beneficial for both parties, right? Like from a startup, you learn what you need to fix, what's working, what's not working, but then you'll also hear from these companies, like what would make it better? What would make this more helpful for our customers? What would be better for our current, employees from a labor perspective? Really addressing the full, complete picture, I think is something that's really important. Making sure your tech is there, make sure you can deliver. I think that's really what it comes down to. But from this year, I can tell you investors were taking 25 plus meetings a day. So they're interested, and there's investors that are coming from the whole gamut, from angel all the way through your M&A and Goldman, Jefferies, et cetera. So whether you're fundraising now, if you're fundraising now, great. Hopefully you'll meet your next investor here. If you're not, it's always good to connect with investors. Maybe it's helpful for your following round, and to go, however you're expanding. You can also meet your potential acquirer at the show as well. So it's about making those connections, taking the meetings. For startups that are going to be at Manifest looking to connect with investors, we do have an office hours. And there's so many different opportunities. It's really just being able to put yourself out there and explain what you do. Elevator pitch means an elevator pitch, not a life story. And I think that I know it's true. I think that we've gone through phases of, it is important and investors do want to hear the story and how it all came to be. But it's also really like, can you deliver? Does your tech hold up to what your story is saying? And also how it can maybe align with some of their other companies, right? So when you're looking to investors, look at who their other portfolio companies are and see, maybe there's ways that you can work with them, right? That's always another way to get in front of an investor, showing you've done the due diligence and that it would be worth their time.
And I think conferences are a great place to actually meet investors, right? Like in general, because the commitment has been made by the investor to say, this is a strategic pillar I want to go after. Right? Like that's the first thing that you see, that because you as a founder, right? Like you as an investor, you should be going to these conferences because you are purposefully thinking that this is the industry that I want to invest in. But then on the flip side, if someone's made the commitment and the people that you are meeting, all money is not made equal. I'll say that very clearly, right? Yeah. You want to take money from strategics. Of course, push comes to shove, I'll take anyone's money. But like, I would prefer to take it from someone that is very strategic, right? That is someone that actually makes sense for my business, aligns with my ethos. They understand this space, right? Like, and there is nuance to our business, right? There is definitely nuance to logistics that does not exist in some of the other industries and fields that are out there, right? Like can you just be, this idea that, Silicon Valley in general has is like, hey, I'm looking at SaaS revenue and ARR and MRR and professional services is something. If your business actually has professional services, then it will count against you from a valuation standpoint. See, that doesn't work in the logistics space because it's complex. It's not like click, buy the software and walk away. I gotta have the service required to establish because I am custom, my needs are custom. And so that realization only exists with VCs, PEs, in angels that actually work in this space to say, I understand how this works and I understand why your revenue looks the way it does.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, again, if you're committed as an investor and you're coming to a show, then that's the right investor that you want to be talking to just to start with. But I'll take anyone's money, as I said.
Yeah, you're like, hand it over. It really is like I know a lot of shows, you kind of say you cover everything. In this case, investors come and, from my conversations, most of them, between 2 and 5 partners are at the show. Because again, Manifest is the only one that covers full end to end. So from the investor standpoint, if there's more than one of you there, one of them is taking meetings all day long. One of them is probably on the show floor and actually interacting. So you can touch, feel, talk to all of the different technology providers and see hands-on and experience what their technology does. You have another one that's probably going to all the different content sessions so that they can be informed and, educated about what's happening in the industry and from the different perspectives of so many. We have over 30 CISOs, chief supply chain officers, speaking at Manifest. So it's educational and it's helpful from that sense. And on the investor side, a lot of investors have actually connected for co-investing opportunities or sharing deal flow. So it's really a win-win for investor and startup and shippers, for everybody. Just, a good time for all.
Maybe on that note, Pam, for those that are either going to raise or those that are going to invest or those that are looking to network or sell or learn or collaborate, do you have any advice for the thousands of people that are going on how to make the most, take the most advantage of the conference? Any thoughts or suggestions?
Yes. So I would say, download the app right when it comes out and start reaching out to people directly, like set up your meetings in advance. It will feel overwhelming if you just show up. It's good to have a plan in place because everyone else is coordinating their meetings as well. Go to the educational sessions, go to all the different content that is relevant to you, not only to learn from, what the speakers are talking about on stage, but also to connect with everyone in the room. Because if you're going to something that you're interested in, guess what? Everyone else that's in that room is interested in solving the same problem that you are. Right. So there's a good peer-to-peer network that can develop from there. And then, don't be shy. Like, this is your opportunity. Go over to everyone, introduce yourself. I think of it like when I was a kid, my parents have told me this. When we would go on vacation, I would just go over to people and be like, hey, I'm Pam, want to be my friend. Not shy at all, clearly. And, it's worth taking that approach. Right. I mean, and just be upfront, be straightforward. And, you can say, hey, like, this is my business and we're in the process of raising, if you're talking to an investor, and flat out ask them, is this an area that you invest in? Like, if you don't know in advance, and if it's not, oh, okay, great. Who would you recommend? Who can you connect me to? Because this is an environment that, when you're at Manifest, it's really easy to say to someone, I don't invest in, IoT, but he does or she does, and can easily, start that conversation. So don't be shy. Don't be shy. Plan ahead. Whatever meetings you can schedule in advance, schedule them. If you've been invested in, right? If you have venture money, reach out to your investors because they're gonna be there, and they can also help you with any of the introductions that you're looking for. So it's really, and a lot of investors, because there's so many investors that come, from this year, we had a number of them that were hosting offsites or their board meetings, or different kind of gatherings. Cause like from an investor side, when do you get all your portfolio companies in one room? Not that often, exactly. So take advantage of all the people that are there from across the world. And if you are from a company side, if you are looking to expand or go cross-border, go to those sessions, right? Go to those sessions, talk to those people. After it's done, go up to the stage and connect with them. We have on our name badges, as I mentioned, the tech before, our name badge technology is next level. You're able to, it's like a tile and you basically tap and all of your information will be synced, like shared, synced. And we will have some announcements soon that will make it even easier for teams to be able to collaborate within the app. So if someone reaches out, if a startup reaches out to an investor for a meeting, maybe he's not the right person from the team, but she is. And you can actually assign that so that, another person from your team could take that meeting.
Hey, and did we mention it's in Vegas?
Yes. And it's the week leading into the Super Bowl, which is also in Vegas. So
yes,
if you haven't booked hotel rooms, just do it now.
I'll be out of there before that happens. Yes.
Well, you never know. We do have some, there will
Raffle
be a lucky
tickets?
surprise.
Okay.
There'll be a lucky surprise.
Okay.
For someone that will definitely be staying through the weekend.
All right.
That's awesome. Well, Pam, listen, thank you so much for joining us today. Want to give you the opportunity to share with the audience where they can follow you on social media and where they could go, if you could share with them where they could go to learn more about the conference, to learn more about Manifest.
Of course, LinkedIn, sign up for our newsletter, The Fest, which goes out every week. It's a whole roundup of news and funding and everything you need to know about the industry in a quick digest. If you haven't booked your tickets yet, head over to Manifest. It's just Manifest. There's a dot right before the ST. And you'll be able to set yourself up, get your tickets, and start scheduling your meetings because it's going to be a really busy few days, and plan ahead. Just plan to be there the whole time because you really don't want to miss anything. There are so many that I can't even share just yet, but so many surprise and delights that we have coming that you really don't want to miss out on.
Amazing. I look forward to seeing you in Vegas.
Likewise.
Awesome. Thank you, Pam.
Hi, I'm Ninad Acharya, CEO and co-founder of Fulfillment IQ, and I'm here with
Dan Call, CRO and partner at Fulfillment IQ. We're the team behind the Ecom Logistics podcast. Our mission is to provide you with genuine insights from our work alongside logistics leaders to help you improve your supply chain.
In the Ecom Logistics podcast, we share the knowledge and the insights we've gained from working alongside amazing brands, retailers, 3PLs, and VCs, so you can make the most out of your supply chain journey.
If you like what you're hearing, we'd truly appreciate your support with a 5-star rating on your favorite podcasting channel. Your feedback not only keeps us going, but also helps others find the podcast. If you think Fulfillment IQ can assist you, or if you have an idea related to logistics, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always up for a chat and ready to explore new possibilities together.
Stay tuned to the Ecom Logistics podcast on your favorite podcast platform for fresh and practical insights into e-commerce and logistics. Until next time, let's keep making a difference in logistics together.